The thing is, she was holding it right there, twisted and jammed in my brand new deadbolt. Her face this blotchy, terrifying shade of crimson, and she was screaming. Screaming at me. Thief! You stole federal property. I stood there, still rubbing the sleep from my eyes, watching the president of the Crestwood Community Association accuse me of felony theft at 6 in the morning, all because her precious master key was stuck inside the lock she'd just tried to use to illegally enter my home. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man she was calling a thief was actually the detective building the federal case against her. It had only been 6 months of pure, unadulterated suburban hell in what I thought was going to be my quiet, little piece of the American dream. I'd scraped together every penny from years of freelance financial consulting, trying to buy stability, trying to find a community where I could finally put down roots. Instead, I walked straight into a dictatorship run by a woman named Deidre Vance. From the moment the moving van pulled away from the curb of my house on Oakwood Lane, she was there, standing with a clipboard clutched to her chest like some kind of medieval shield, her steel gray hair pulled back, so tight it looked painful. "Mr. Hayes," she'd announced, not even bothering with a hello, the words clipped and sterile. "I'm Deidre Vance, and we need to establish compliance immediately." Compliance? I'd barely unpacked my coffee maker, let alone my life. I remember setting down a box marked tax files. Oh, the irony, and blinking at her. She launched into a list of violations so absurd it felt like a prank. My moving truck, apparently, had blocked the community sightlines for 6 hours. My lawn, she claimed, showed signs of stress from improper hydration schedules. And get this, my recycling bin was positioned, and I quote, 4 inches outside the designated placement zone. I waited for the punchline, but that steely gaze never cracked. She was dead serious. That was my first taste of Deidre, but it was far from the worst. She somehow knew I was in finance, which was unnerving. Surely as a financial professional, you understand the importance of maintaining asset values, she'd sneered, adding that my home-based consulting business would require special permits and quarterly compliance reviews, all for an appropriate administrative cost, of course. I just smiled, nodded, the compliant, cautious accountant, while a chill ran down my spine, because everything about her felt less like community management and more like outright control, a kind of sophisticated shakedown. The next day, the packet arrived, 47 pages of single-spaced, soul-crushing regulations. But the real meat was the fee schedule. Administrative reviews, monitoring costs, community harmony charges. It read like a restaurant menu designed to bleed you dry. That evening, I got my first warning from the inside. Sarah Mitchell, 3 houses down, sweet as pie but clearly terrified, showed up with a welcome pie and whispered warnings. "Pay whatever she asks, Mark," she'd pleaded, glancing over her shoulder like Deidre might materialize from the shadows. "Don't question her authority." The Jennings tried last year over a $700 fine for leaving their boat cover slightly ajar. Deidre made their lives an absolute misery until they sold the house at a loss and fled. She has ways. Later, Tom Bradley, a retired military man with a grim, world-weary look, echoed the advice. "She's turned this into her personal kingdom, Mark. Keep your head down, pay the taxes, and don't attract her attention." They were good people, trapped. And they reinforced everything my instincts, my professional instincts, were screaming. This wasn't just about property values. This was about tyranny. I was in deep now. My role was simple: infiltrate, establish motive, and document systemic civil rights violations under the guise of community authority. It was Operation Silver Coast, and Deidre Vance was the target. She was the epicenter of a network, teaching other HOAs how to weaponize bylaws for profit and control. My cover, Mark Hayes, the boring, easily intimidated financial consultant, was perfect. The moment the conflict truly escalated was when Deidre unveiled the Master Key Security Protocol at a community meeting, a theatrical, self-important tribunal. She demanded that every resident provide a spare house key to the HOA office for emergency safety inspections. Tom, bless his heart, challenged her, asking for the legal basis. She froze him with a smile that could curdle milk. "We're implementing this under County Safety Statute 902D, Tom. Civilian communities operate differently than the military." It sounded official, but I knew the truth. I had confirmed that statute was complete fiction. I raised my hand, playing the cautious accountant. Could we just see the actual text of that statute, Madam President? Just for our records. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The troublemaker, the new guy, dared to question her again. That's when she hit me with the first real fine. $250 for disrupting community harmony. A fine for asking a question. That cemented the psychological profile our team had built. Deidre needed absolute, public compliance. Resistance only fueled her ego and escalated her tactics. I paid the $250 immediately. I also surrendered my spare key, paid the processing fees, and thanked her for her vigilance. I became the defeated resident, all smiles and apologies. But secretly, I was calculating. Every exchange, every fine, every threat was being meticulously logged, categorized, and filed as evidence. Then came the illegal search, the moment that pushed Deidre over the edge. 6 a.m. Monday. She and two bored lackeys, Gary and Janice, pounded on my door for the scheduled safety inspection. I let them in, projecting confused resignation, but my phone was silently recording every violation of privacy. Deidre, shedding the mask of civility, moved through my home like an occupying general, rifling through drawers, opening closets. She stopped at my locked filing cabinet. "What's in here, Mr. Hayes? I'll need you to open it. Community safety requires transparency." "Madam President," I replied, carefully injecting genuine alarm into my voice. "Those are confidential client tax files. Social security numbers, business financials. I am legally, professionally obligated not to disclose them without client authorization or a court order. I can't legally show them to anyone." Her predatory smile returned. "I'm not anyone, Mr. Hayes. I'm the duly elected president of your association. Refusing suggests you're hiding something." The trap was sprung. Violate client confidentiality or confirm her suspicion that I was a threat. "I understand your position," I insisted, "but my professional ethics supersede HOA authority." She didn't hesitate. "Gary, call 911. Tell them we have a resident refusing to comply, possibly concealing materials that pose a risk to community welfare." She actually did it. She called the police because I wouldn't violate client confidentiality during an HOA inspection. 2 county officers showed up, looking utterly miserable. Officer Ramirez, the older one, took one look at Deidre, the 2 board members hovering, and me in my pajamas, and sighed. "Ma'am, can you explain the specific safety concern that requires immediate access to Mr. Hayes' private documents?" Deidre rattled off the fictional statute and the vague covenant violations. Ramirez cut her off, his voice firming up. "Ma'am, private community covenants cannot override constitutional protections against unreasonable search and seizure. HOA authority doesn't extend to warrantless searches of private business documents." The air in the room went electric. Deidre's mask shattered. Her legal fiction had been exposed to actual law enforcement. She was vibrating with frustrated rage as the officers advised me to file harassment charges and left. "This isn't over, Mr. Hayes," she hissed, gathering her clipboard and her dignity. She had been humiliated, and that level of defiance demanded escalation. 48 hours later, the legal assault began. A certified letter from the HOA's aggressive firm, charging me with vague safety and standards breaches and demanding $8,700, 3 months of my cover income, due in 30 days. I called my official contact, not an actual lawyer, and confirmed the pattern. Deidre wins by default because fighting HOA lawsuits costs a fortune. So, I authorized payment. I wrote the check for the full $8,700, making sure the board and the neighbors knew. The troublemaker was broken. Deidre staged a victory rally that evening, displaying the fine as her trophy, and the neighborhood nodded approvingly. Psychological manipulation at its finest, turning my fight for privacy into selfishness and her tyranny into community protection. Next, she sent a private investigator, a rumpled guy named Smith. I cooperated fully, answering every question about my financial practice, my move, my background. All truthful, all boring. The PI found exactly what our agency wanted him to find. Mark Hayes was completely clean, legitimate business, no criminal history, no red flags. And that was the final catalyst. Tom Bradley met me at a neutral coffee shop, his face pale. "Deidre's planning something, Mark. She's convinced the PI report proves you're a sophisticated criminal who maintains a perfect cover identity. She's pressuring the board for a comprehensive property investigation this weekend. She wants to use the master key while you're gone, search the house top to bottom, and find the incriminating evidence. Evidence bags, documentation forms. She was convinced she was going to find drugs, stolen property, something to justify her entire campaign. Tom begged me to leave. She's not going to stop, Mark. She'll destroy your life. I looked at him, and then I smiled, not the nervous accountant smile, but the real one. She's right, Tom. I am going to leave. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I called my clients, apologizing for a personal emergency, and put my legitimate files in a safety deposit box. I made loud phone calls about finding a new place quickly and left real estate listings prominently displayed. Then, I packed a suitcase, left it visible in the bedroom, and drove away, projecting total surrender. But 3 blocks away, I parked the car, grabbed my duffel bag, the one with the specialized gear, and walked back through the thick woods behind Oakwood Lane. I settled into the reinforced basement, with cameras positioned perfectly, and waited for Deidre Vance to commit the final, most satisfying mistake of her criminal career. It was Friday evening, just after sunset. Janice, Gary, and Deidre crept up to my front door. Deidre, confident in her master key, inserted it into the deadbolt. It went in halfway and stopped. "What's wrong?" Gary whispered, a pathetic figure glancing around nervously. "It's stuck," Deidre hissed, jiggling the key with desperate frustration. The key wasn't stuck because the lock was damaged. It was stuck because I had deliberately filed microscopic grooves into the brass, just enough to jam that symbol of her power right at the moment of the crime, trapping the physical evidence of her breaking and entering where federal prosecutors could find it. "Force it," Janice urged, her voice tight. Deidre applied one last, furious twist. The key locked solid, a beautiful, permanent fixture in my lock. "The back door it is," she muttered, and led her accomplices around the house, producing a crowbar like a seasoned burglar. The back door yielded with a sickly crack of splintered wood. They were in. They raced through the house, tearing it apart. Deidre snapped orders. "Basement, office, bedroom. Find the ledger. Find the files." And then, in my bedroom closet, perfectly positioned, she found the cardboard box labeled, simply, "Evidence, Federal Training." Inside, nestled amongst official-looking foam padding, were several realistic prop packages that looked exactly like seized narcotics, complete with chain-of-custody tags and official seals. Perfect bait. Deidre's scream of pure, vindictive triumph echoed through the house. "I found it. Gary, Janice, get in here now." She was holding up the prop package, her face radiating psychotic self-satisfaction. "It explains everything. The suspicious behavior, the late-night activities. He's been dealing drugs out of our neighborhood. And look, FBI evidence tags. He must have stolen them." The irony was almost too sweet to bear. She had actually found federal evidence materials, just not the way she thought. "What do we do now?" Janice stammered. "We call 911, Deidre declared, already dialing, her voice rising to a frantic pitch of self-importance. "We demand immediate federal response. This is bigger than HOA. This is Homeland Security. We've uncovered a drug distribution operation involving corruption of federal law enforcement." She was demanding the federal government investigate the crime she was currently committing. I listened to her 911 call from my hidden perch, a small smile spreading across my face. "All units, this is Detective Hayes." I radioed the task force, switching to my official codename. "Target has committed breaking and entering, evidence tampering, and filing a false report to federal authorities. She's requesting arrest of the property owner for crimes she believes she's uncovered. County response team is cleared for immediate deployment." "Copy that, Detective." Ready for the reveal. At exactly 4:15 p.m., a county sheriff's patrol car pulled silently onto Oakwood Lane. Deidre positioned herself by the now-broken back door, ready to brief her federal allies. The patrol car door opened. I stepped out. Full county sheriff's uniform. Badge gleaming. Radio crackling. Every inch the professional I had been for 15 years. Deidre Vance froze like a statue in the park. Her mind simply couldn't process the image. The meek accountant, the criminal she'd just exposed, the defeated resident, was walking toward her house, wearing the uniform of actual authority. "Ma'am," I called through the broken doorway, my voice now carrying the cold, official tone of a law enforcement officer. This is Detective Mark Hayes, County Sheriff's Department. I understand you called about federal evidence located on these premises. Deidre's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Her complexion drained to an awful, patchy gray. Her precious clipboard slipped from her hand and clattered to my hardwood floor. You, she whispered, the word barely audible. You're a cop. Detective Mark Hayes, shield number 7129. I confirmed, stepping through the doorway she'd destroyed. Currently assigned to Operation Silver Coast, a multi-agency federal task force investigating civil rights violations by homeowner association officials. I pulled out the handcuffs with practiced efficiency. Deidre Vance, you are under arrest for breaking and entering, evidence tampering, conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of law, and filing false reports to federal authorities. Her legs gave out. She slumped onto my couch, staring at the handcuffs. 6 months of documented civil rights violations, illegal fines, unauthorized searches, and systematic harassment of residents under color of HOA authority. I continued, my voice measured. The master key jammed in my lock contains your fingerprints, Ms. Vance. The evidence you found in my closet consists of FBI training materials placed there specifically for you to discover. And we have 6 months of recorded conversations documenting your criminal conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Gary tried to bolt. He made it exactly 4 feet before a federal agent in a black tactical vest materialized from the hallway and cuffed him. Janice just started sobbing. I was protecting the neighborhood. Deidre finally choked out, tears running down her face as I helped her to her feet. Everything I did was to protect property values and keep families safe. Miss Vance, I replied gently, guiding her toward the broken back door. Protecting people is my job. What you did was terrorize them. The town hall meeting 3 hours later was a scene of controlled chaos. Federal agents stood by the exits, and 72 residents, including a wide-eyed Sarah Mitchell and a grimly satisfied Tom Bradley, packed into the folding chairs. The same room where Deidre had held court as a petty tyrant now served as the venue for her complete downfall. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, standing at the podium in my uniform, looking out at faces that were a mix of shock, relief, and utter disbelief. For the past 6 months, I've been living among you as part of Operation Silver Coast, a multi-agency federal task force. The murmuring was deafening. I activated the projector, showing a map marked with dozens of red dots, neighborhoods across the state where Deidre had consulted, teaching what she called advanced community management techniques. Actually, a playbook for criminal racketeering disguised as HOA authority. The case against Deidre Vance is overwhelming, I announced. She has agreed to plead guilty to federal racketeering charges in exchange for cooperation. She faces a maximum sentence of 20 years, forfeiture of all criminally derived assets, and a permanent ban from serving in any HOA capacity. The applause, when it came, was spontaneous and sustained. I paused, letting the emotion settle. A federal victims' compensation fund has been established. Residents of Crestwood and other affected communities are entitled to full restitution of illegal fines and damages for civil rights violations. That news brought the house down. Tom Bradley raised his hand. Detective Hayes, he asked, his voice steady. Will you be staying in the neighborhood? I thought about the question. I had a huge promotion waiting for me, a national task force expansion. It was the dream career move. But I looked at Sarah Mitchell, clutching her tissues, and Tom, the man who quietly stayed skeptical. I looked at the community I had infiltrated and then saved. I've decided to remain in Crestwood, I announced, the certainty surprising even myself. The Sheriff's Department has offered me a promotion to the Community Relations Division. I'll be working with neighborhoods across the county to prevent the kind of abuse that happened here. The master key, the symbol of Deidre's absolute power, is now Exhibit A in a federal evidence locker. The house I bought for a cover identity has become my actual home. The community I infiltrated is now the one I've chosen to protect. Deidre Vance spent 6 months trying to drive me out of her neighborhood. In the end, she drove herself out instead. But here's the thing I want you all to think about. Deidre wasn't a criminal mastermind. She was an egomaniac who used fear, isolation, and legal-sounding jargon to manipulate people into policing themselves. So, tell me, What is the fundamental difference between an overzealous HOA president and a criminal using community rules as a weapon? Have you ever had a run-in with an HOA or community leader who crossed the line from management to menace? Did you fight, or did you pay and flee? Share your stories below. Let's talk about where the line between community rule and outright tyranny truly lies. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of justice being served in the quiet corners of America.